Nashville based on voting, that happened before, and Tony was looking at, okay, where do we do the reception, what kind of keynote do we want? And when we were talking about Nashville, we were like, well, the last 2 times we've been in Nashville, we used Rick Roberts, and he was amazing. So we felt that was just kind of a no-brainer that we would, that's who we would go with. So our speaker today will help us discover the key to accomplishing goals that are greater than ourselves. He's a member of the National Speakers Association, former head of a nonprofit, and splits his time in front of his audiences entertaining as well as speaking. From Nashville, Tennessee, please welcome Rick Roberts.
Thank you, Tony. Well, I'm excited to be here. As Tony mentioned, I've been with the group a couple of times. I'm curious how many folks were at the other times I was here. When I first started, I came as Barney Fife, dressed up and did the Mayberry method. We talked about productivity and improving that. The next time I came around, we got out of our seats and got up on our feet and did the Listen Up, Laugh It Up program where we listened to each other and tried to count to 20 without messing up. Y'all remember that? How many folks were at that one? All right, so you've been to 2. Today is going to be a little bit different. Before I get into it, though, I just want to have a little bit of fun. I know you guys have been working hard, listening hard all day, but welcome to my town of Nashville. How many folks have been here before and just come back and it's just a fun place to be? I love it. I live about 20 miles outside of town in a little area called Mount Juliet, which is about 76 Dollar General stores away from here. Just a few Dollar Generals. But my favorite thing about Wilson County, where I live, is the home of the Cracker Barrel. And that is one of my all-time favorite places to go to. You got Cracker Barrel people out there? All right, raise them arms up high. You worked your whole life to clog up that artery. Let's get it out. I love the Cracker Barrel. I almost died one time at the Cracker Barrel. That's how much I go there. Life happens at the Cracker Barrel. I was sitting there having my Uncle Herschel's favorite, back before they took it off the menu. That gives you all the meats and 3 sides and everything you could ask for. I'm enjoying that, having my fried apples, and before you know it, the tornado siren goes off across the street. And I start looking for a safe place to hide inside a Cracker Barrel. Can you pick a more unsafe building to be in the Twister than a Cracker Barrel? You ever look at the walls and ceilings in that place? They got hose, pitchforks, antlers. Golf tees are flying around at you 90 miles an hour. It's like a hillbilly matrix. Like, pew. I was slipping on cherry cobbler for a half an hour trying to get out. But then there's so much I found out recently I got the high cholesterol going on. How many folks got high cholesterol out there? Oh, there. And let me ask you this and be completely honest. How many of y'all think that cholesterol is a scam? Anybody think it's a big scam? I'm with you on that. 2 reasons I think it's not something to worry about. First off, my grandma lived to be 99 years old. She used the same bacon grease she kept in a Folgers can under the kitchen sink for 50 years. Y'all know grandmas like that? You go visit her, she'd make you some eggs, she'd get a metal ice cream scoop and scoop out that stuff and throw it in the skillet and it starts to dissolve and there'd be a piece of bacon from 1975 just hanging on waving at you. I'm tired of this, take me with you. I don't think we need less grease, we need more to keep everything running smooth. The other reason I think it's a scam is I didn't have high cholesterol till my doctor said it did. I was doing pretty good till I went and saw him. He told me my cholesterol number was 425. Yeah, that is the highest in my county, so I got to go to regionals that weekend. I was eating butter to get my numbers up. But you do not want 425, do you? You want 200 and under. That's what he said. I said, well, how do we get there? He goes, you got to change your diet and your exercise programs. I said, I can't do that. I don't have either program going on right now. He said, well, at least try a diet for a couple of months and we'll check you out again. He didn't say what diet, so I kind of had to start Googling, And I found this website. You put in all the food that you like to eat, and it tells you what diet will let you eat that food. So you look long enough, you can find something, right? I like to eat meat, so it said try out the old Atkins diet. Y'all ever hear about the Atkins diet? It looked great on paper, but it is hard to stick with that diet. I mean, it says eat meat 5 or 6 times a day. Then it says go smoke a cigarette and take a nap. That was the Chet Atkins diet that I got on. You don't know who he is. You probably don't have high cholesterol. So that didn't work. Then he said, we got wonderful medication we can put you on. I said, slow down. I've seen the commercials. Nothing wonderful about those commercials. 55 seconds of horrific side effects on every single one of them. We used to be ashamed of what was wrong with us. Now we're out there having 5-minute musical commercials about it, right? I mean, it used to be if you had psoriasis, you just put on a turtleneck. Nobody knew. Now you're out there saying, bring me the bacon, you know? I mean, every commercial I watch, sometimes they slide in the side effect at the end, hoping you don't even pick up on it. You ever notice that? How about when they say, may cause an early death? Well, you need to lead with that news, buddy. How about when they say this one, don't take this pill if you're allergic to this pill? I'm going to need one pill to find out, all right? Hook me up with a free sample there. So they put me on Lipitor. Turns out they didn't mention the major side effect on that commercial. $8 a dose. $8 that's a Big Mac and a side of fries. $8, gone. One more I got to take my pill and I dropped it. Couldn't find it and I was out my $8. So now I just wrap it up in a piece of ham, swallow it whole every day. Melt some cheese on it so it sticks good. You get a toothpick in there, it's a pill in a blanket, ain't it? So I don't know. Well, you're out here in Nashville, hopefully you'll find some places. How many folks are leaving tonight? Anybody leaving right after this? Oh my goodness. How many are going to stick around and go out and explore the area? All right, Martin's Barbecue is my favorite. You can walk it from here. It's kind of towards the water and towards the Music City Hall of Fame, Country Music Hall of Fame. They got some good stuff. They got like a beer garden, they call it, so you can eat outside if you want. If you like anything else that causes heartburn and indigestion, a food truck will be right out there for you. So hook yourself up. Well, I'm excited to be here, like I said. Today, I'm going to talk to you about stuff that you may have touched on before or may have thought about doing, but my goal today is help you move in a direction that's going to get you somewhere you've never thought you could get before. The program today is called Bigger, Better, Faster, and Further. And what that's all about is creating a goal bigger than you've ever dreamed you could possibly do. Doing it for not just yourself, but the betterment of other people. Doing it a little bit faster than you thought you could, so you had the momentum to finish. Then actually, when you finish, realize the impact you've had that will last further and further than you ever dreamed about. Maybe even generational impact, where something you started today thinking about turns into be something that's great for other people years and years down the road. And the thing is, we all have great potential. We get busy with life, and we don't tap into it the way that I really think we ought to be tapping into it. I think we're all put on this planet to serve each other and help each other do things. And we do that with our businesses. That's great. But also outside the business, the impact we have on others is kind of just sitting there waiting for us to take it on. So I want you to, real quickly, just close your eyes for 1 second. And I want you to picture your favorite activity. It might be running. It might not be running. It might be sleeping in on the weekend. It might be playing with children. It might be taking care of the elderly in your life. It could be anything you enjoy doing. It could be something crazy. You might like skipping rope, and that's your favorite thing to do. If you weren't here right now and you go do something else, what would it be? Just think about that in your mind for a second, okay? Just whatever that is. And hang on to that thought and enjoy being there for a moment. And just think about the joy you have doing that activity. Let you just sit there for a second and soak that in and take you to a happy place. Everybody got a place? All right, you can come back to that place. We'll go back there again in a little bit. But we all have things we super enjoy doing. Sometimes other people enjoy doing it alongside of us. Sometimes it's just a solo thing where we get away from everybody, and that's what we like. But those are things that we can actually tap into for the betterment of other folks. Now, when I talk about bigger, better, faster, further, it's important to dream. It's important to use our brain. Our brain is so powerful, but we don't often take it to its full potential. Now, how much of our brain do we actually use every day? Do y'all know the statistic on that? Anybody, just throw out a number. I'll get you there.
60%.
60. Anybody think less?
11%.
11%. Anybody think more? Nobody thinks more than 60%. Now, when I was growing up, even until a few years ago, everybody always repeated the same thing. We use about 10% of our brains. That's not true at all. We use 100% of our brains. We don't use it all at the same time. Some days, if we don't have our coffee, we're not using any of it yet. But the thing about our brain is it's always working. It's just a matter of whether we're tapped into what it's doing or not. In fact, they think that about 20% of the calories we consume each day is just the muscle of our brain consuming those calories. You ever go to bed and wake up a little bit lighter the next morning? Your brain has been working out all night long. Crazy dreams. Maybe you're on Ambien. You have no idea how you got to that crazy place. But whatever it is, your brain is active. 20% of our calories. I think that's impressive, and it makes me want to use my brain a little bit more. Me, I don't have much of a brain until I drink a cup of coffee. And I actually heard the phrase and did the research that our brain isn't really fully matured until about the age of 25 or even our late 20s. So that's why I made sure I asked my wife to marry me when she was 23 years old, before she had a clear idea of processing what she was saying yes to. And we've been together for a while now. Now, some people use their brain for great stuff. Every once in a while, we get these historical figures that come up with theorems that define gravity or redefine the way art is done. That's always impressive, but there's other ways we can do it too. Sometimes we fool our brain into not using its full potential, trying to decide whether we're going to storage wars or the Kardashians tonight. We're putting our brain on autopilot there, not letting it work very much. Sometimes you need to do that, but all the time, I'm not sure. We also let our brain control how we think we can go about doing things and what we can accomplish. And that's where you can take a little bit of that back and start telling your brain what you want it to do. We have a lot of big fears. Oddly enough, public speaking is a big one. How many folks have that fear? Anybody else have public speaking fear besides me? Anybody? All right. Some people have fear of heights. Who has fear of heights? Anybody out there? Oh, yeah. It's one of mine as well. What about going to the dentist? Anybody have fear of going to the dentist? Now, what if you were a dentist standing on top of a building and doing public speaking? That's like a triple threat. That guy's got it all going on figured out. But we allow our brain to control what we do. And if we want to do something and we're getting resistance from our own self, that's trouble. That's problematic if you ask me. Some people use their brains to do very creative things. I don't know if you've seen this, but the NFL stadiums are now carrying cotton candy burritos. How gross is that? For 15 bucks, you get a cotton candy that's wrapped up with all these other different things, and you can swallow it down. That's not bad enough. I saw this invention the other day, chicken diapers. Have y'all heard about chicken diapers? I guess if the chickens eat too many of them burritos, they're going to need a diaper. Does anybody raise chickens in your backyard? How many chickens you got back here?
0.
Oh, so you got a coyote in your backyard too? That's like a thing. I just got new neighbors. They're from California. And when I was growing up, every TV show made in California made fun of the South, and now all of California is moving here to be part of it. It's amazing. Next door neighbor moved in. The first thing he did was got a chicken coop in his backyard. He thought everybody had to have one down here. I'm like, no, we're not even allowed to have them in the neighborhood. Then he started bringing me eggs, and they looked like Easter eggs. None of them had the same color to them. They had spots on them. And I said, I don't want those eggs, man. I get mine from the grocery. He's like, but these eggs, they got stuff in them you can't get from the grocery store. I'm like, yeah, like beaks and feathers. I've seen them poking out the side of them shells. You know what I mean? But he's like, well, I can eat eggs anytime I want. I got chickens. I'm like, well, I got a rifle. I can eat winged eggs anytime I want. So put them eggs away. But yeah, it's a big deal out here. But here's the thing. When we start telling our mind what we can do, or what we even think we can do, our mind opens up to it. And I'm going to spend a few seconds going through some of these incredible records, some of them kind of strange that I found out, but a few Guinness Book World Records. This guy here, Ashrita Furman, he's a pogo stick wizard. In fact, he holds a lot of records. The fastest mile on a pogo stick, 13 minutes, not bad. He actually has the highest climbing on a pogo stick, 11.5 miles up and down the foothills of Mount Fuji on a pogo stick. And he said, what else can I do? I went up, now let's go down. Underwater pogo stick jumping, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Now that's crazy, isn't it? Did you all think you could maybe do that? He probably didn't think he could do it when he first started, but he found a way to do it. And he kept on going. In fact, he not only holds those records in the Guinness Book, but he actually holds the Guinness Book World Record for the most Guinness Book World Records. How many records do you think this guy has? Higher than 10.
14.
Higher than 14.
20.
Higher than 20. Higher than 25. Higher than 30. Higher than 50. Higher than 100.
200.
Check this out. 600 different Guinness Book World Records. So he's not just a one-hit pogo stick wonder. He can do Can you imagine? I mean, one is kind of neat, that's novelty, but 600. This means to me, this guy controls his brain. He tells his brain and his body what he wants it to do, and he figures out a way to do it. Pretty impressive. Maybe you don't want to get active. Maybe you just want to sit around and grow your hair out. This lady here, she has the longest hair on record for dreadlocks. How many feet do you think they are?
18.
14. A little longer than that. 19 feet. Longer than a city bus. Which means if she sits on a bus, she has to get in and let her hair get in for about 5 more minutes. Bring it on in. Probably has a Guinness Book World Record for the most clogged sinks and showers. 19 feet. And she just had to have patience, right? You just had to teach yourself patience for that. You probably see this guy pop up in the news every year around 4th of July. The Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest winner, Joey Chestnut. 76 hot dogs and buns in one sitting in competition. Isn't that nasty, don't you think? So not only did he set that record, I think he probably also set a record for most trips to the restroom in 3 days afterwards. But that is a lot of hot dogs. I mean, goodness gracious. Maybe the biggest heartburn as well. Here in Nashville, a few years back, I got to be part of the Guinness Book World Record. A bunch of comedians got together. We want to see if we could do the longest comedy show in the history. Before we took it on, it was about 5 days. They did it out in Los Angeles. We thought, hey, we're Nashville. We're kind of central. We can get a lot of people involved on this. How many days do you think we pulled off that longest comedy show? And by the way, we had to have at least 20 people in the audience that were awake all the time we were on stage. 7 days is actually pretty close. 184 hours or 8 days or so. We did it, and I got to be part of the Guinness Book World Records. Kind of fun just to be part of it, and we're in the book now. But that was something I never would have conceived of. Somebody else here in town brought in a lot of comics to do it, and it was just kind of fun to do it together. You know, comedy can be a very solo thing. You're out there by yourself, but to see all these comics you hadn't seen in years, great fun. Other crazy things you might have seen. The most snow angels in one place was 8,910. In what town do you think this was in? Or I'll just say what state?
Minnesota.
Kind of close to Minnesota, up that way. Not quite Wisconsin. You're right up in there.
Montana.
There's a north and south of it. Dakotas, yeah. Bismarck, North Dakota. They went out there and they all did the snow angels at the same time. Simultaneous snow angel action. So you don't have to be an incredible athlete. You might be able to grow your hair long or just lay down on the snow and still be part of something bigger than yourself. It's kind of interesting. Now, there are some freak athletes out there, and I always like to look at those people and see what are they doing and how in the world are they doing it. The Montane Spice Race is out there in Scotland and England. It kind of covers this big mountain range. It's 268 miles. The elevation is 43,635 some odd feet. Super high up in the air, breathing's not easy, and it's like ultra marathon running. So this race, 268 miles. First off, that's impressive to try to pull that off, right? But the last time that the record was set out there was in 2019. A lady named Jasmine Paris set out and took this whole thing on and finished it in 83 hours, 12 minutes, and 13 seconds. So I'm not great at math, but I think it's like 13 to 15 minute miles on top of a mountain. Like, it's pretty amazing. And she was 12 hours ahead of the record, and she beat the fastest man that year by 15 hours. So not only is she incredible, she is determined. By the way, you know what the average temperature during the winter in this time of the race is in that area? 14 degrees. And overnight it can get below 20 below. And then you add in the wind chill on top of that. So pretty amazing what the mind can tell the body to get involved with and do. I saw this Netflix special recently on Diane Nyad. Great swimmer, you may have seen this. Very inspiring. At age 28, she attempted to swim from Cuba to Florida, to Key West. And eventually she would do it. It took her 5 attempts. But she started at age 28. Does anybody know roughly the age she accomplished this goal at? In her 60s, 64 years old. You want to talk about focused long term and finishing something off that you started. She's a great example of that. 110 miles swim. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Now, you might think I'm not a great athlete. I'm kind of old. Well, here's a guy who's was getting ready to turn 100 years old. And he set a goal for himself before he turned 100 to walk 100 lengths of his garden and back every single day of that year before he turned 100, from 99 to 100. Now, not only did he do it, he set a record in the process. You might be creative and not even get out of your house and set some goals and set some great records. Lady Gaga, during the pandemic, put together this big concert online, the One World Together at Home event, and she got so many people involved with it. I think there were 72 different artists and set a record as well. Maybe you're artistic, and that's what you can do with your bigger ability. This guy here, Rod Billum, had a YouTube streaming art channel. He's a cartoonist for kids' books, and he thought, you know what? I'll try to see if I can get everybody online at one time and set a record and teach them how to draw a simple whale. And not only did he do it, 45,611 people joined him. So you can inspire other people if what you're doing is creative, interesting, athletic, or just plain strange. Here's one that's a little bit lucky. This gal here, Gabriella Gerhardt, she holds the Guinness Book World Records for collecting the most four-leaf clovers in 8 hours. She did this up in Wisconsin. How many four-leaf clovers do you think she found in 8 hours? More than 35? More than 100? More than 300? 877 40 kilometers in 8 hours. That's a unique gift and a specific ability, but she was able to tap into it and do something bigger than herself. So pretty interesting. So again, I want you to think back to when I had you close your eyes a minute ago. Something that you enjoy doing that you might be particularly good at, or it could be something you've always thought about doing and never attempted. In the top left box on the blue sheet that's in front of you, I want you to take a minute or so and just write down a couple things that have popped in your mind as far as something you're good at, or maybe you might be able to put into motion to be a goal for yourself to accomplish. So, don't have to get too deep into it, but what's your favorite thing? Maybe how many times you'd like to attempt that thing to set a record, or just mainly I want you to get down what your special skill and talent is. So take a minute and do that and we'll come back. All right, has everybody got one? Maybe two? All right, so I wouldn't ask you guys to do anything that I wouldn't. And again, if you're struggling, I'm going to put this slide up here for you to maybe kind of get you some ideas of what you can put in that top box. But it might not be something so obvious as running a marathon or skating around a rink for 100 laps, whatever it might be. It could be that your skill is one of these areas right here. You might be talented in some way, but you might also be somebody that's connected to a lot of people. And maybe your goal is to connect that network and raise awareness or funds for a cause. It could be that you are a very creative person and you can help somebody else who's got their goal, get the goal out there and publicize it a little bit maybe. It could be an athletic ability. It could be you're a great people person. You might want to talk to a group of people to support you for your goal or get other people's input on what yours could be. It may be that you're just great at focusing and finishing things, so you can help somebody who's trying to attempt a goal finish theirs. Could be you're an excellent planner. You know that somebody else's plan might have a few little spots in it, little gaps or obstacles they're not thinking of, and you can help them plan around it. It could be you're just a great listener, and you can listen to somebody else's idea of what they want to accomplish and help them clarify that a little bit. So it could be any of those things. But you can always do something and do it bigger than you think. But sometimes you are in such a cycle and a habit and a routine of doing things, you don't pause to think about trying something new. Or even, sometimes we don't even question why we're doing something that we're doing. We've just done it for so long, we just continue to do it because it's habit or it's nature. Sometimes you need a disruption. Back in 2020, big disruption for me as a speaker. The first part of the year was going great. First 2 or 3 months, had a lot of events, had a lot of fun speaking, and then all of a sudden, March hit, and by the second or third week of March, I had 115 events canceled on me. Couldn't go to work, had a lot of time on my hands, was hanging out at home with my family, which I enjoyed, but I realized pretty quickly my whole family was based on me not being there all the time. In fact, I remember one morning I was having breakfast, and my daughter says, "Papa, they keep saying the word non-essential on the news. What does that mean?" I said, "I don't know. I guess it's something that's nice to have, but you don't have to have it." She goes, "Oh, I get it. Kind of like your hair." Well, kind of like your college fund, huh? I could be happy being bald on the boat if we want to catch that sucker in. But we were my wife was working from home. We were all, me and my son, 4 of us, just staring at each other the whole day. We go outside and do some stuff. But I realized I really had no excuse at this time not to get back in shape. I hadn't been exercising really since I was in college, which was decades ago. And I thought, man, I need to get out there and just do something. So I thought, my only goal is to get in shape. Didn't know exactly what that looked like. Wasn't really clearly defined. But I knew I wanted to try. So I went out, started jogging, And I jogged a little bit, but like Forrest Gump, pretty quick, I'm tired. I want to go home. If you run, I love you. I did that back in high school and college. I just can't do it anymore. I tried for a while, and before I knew it, I went out and got plantar fasciitis, which I don't know if you've ever had that before. Anybody ever had it before? Yeah. If you've never had it, it's like somebody takes an ice pick and just stabs you in your arch of your foot nonstop for months on end. It's so hard to get rid of it. And so I was running, and I actually trying to do too much too soon and was running too fast and not giving my muscles a chance to catch up with what my brain wanted to do. So I had a good idea, but the execution was poor. And before you know it, I had that injury, and I went to the doctor real quick, and he said, listen, you can't run for a while, you got to do these stretches, you got to roll your foot on ice, all these different things. He goes, but you can ride a bike because it's a different muscle group, and it might warm that area up and help it heal faster. So I said, all right, I'll ride a bike. Hadn't rode a bike in a long time. Had an old Walmart mountain bike sitting in the garage that me and my son would sometimes take trips on and have fun with. And I didn't even know, this is how a disruption is helpful. There was a mountain bike trail 7 miles long, 1 mile from my house. And I've been driving past it for 10 years. The sign was just a little bit down the street. I never went down the street. I had no idea. So suddenly I'm out there riding a mountain bike, having a little fresh air. Great for me to kind of get my mind off of not working and think about what I might do when things come back around. And I just got a little bit more physically fit. But I kind of got bored with summertime, it's a little bit hot, a little bit buggy out there in the woods. So I got me a regular road bike, they call it. It's got the drop-down handlebars, and kind of got used to riding that around a little bit. And got a little bit bored with my neighborhood, took it to another neighborhood, and then I realized Nashville is connected by greenways and bike lanes. You can go 25 miles one direction if you can do it. So I started getting on those, and I would go a little bit and come back, and then I would start at where I left off. I'd drop the car, start there and go a little further and get back. Started to piece together all these different trails, started having fun. Before I knew it, I did a 26-mile bike ride one day on that old mountain bike. I'm like, that's about as far as a marathon, right? I did a marathon on a bike, and I could still walk the next day. Like I was just getting in shape a little bit. A couple more weeks went by, and boy, I hit a 40-miler. I'm like, my goodness, this is kind of fun, 40 miles. Never in my mind thought I could do 40 miles. Well, a couple more weeks went by, got in a little better shape, pulled off 52 miles. And I'm like, man, this is something else. And I started feeling good, feeling excited about it, and I had all day, every day for 5 months to keep riding that bike. So that's what I did, got my sunshine, found a 60-mile route that I could do from the dam by the airport to downtown Nashville, around Titan Stadium here, and back out. Did that a few times, worked it up again before you knew it. I did a 70-miler, an 80-miler, and I started thinking, what if I could do 100 miles on a bike? I had never thought I could do that. I started off doing just 6 minutes running, and then I was doing 6-hour bike ride attempts, So I thought, can I do it? If I do it, I got to have a plan. So I talked to a friend of mine who's a triathlete and got a few tips from him. I said, I'm going to try to do 100 miles. What do I need to do? He goes, well, if you've never done it before, start early, because it might take you longer than you think. So as soon as the sun comes up, get out there. He goes, I would recommend doing a 33-mile route that comes back to your vehicle, getting you more Gatorade or more food, restocking, take a little stretch break, go back out, maybe do that one, or a different 33-mile that comes back to the same spot. So we know you can do 60 because you've done that before. And if you're not feeling it, you can call it a day there, but if you feel good, you can pick one of those 33-mile routes again, do another mile on top of it, and you've got your 100 miles. I said, all right, any other tips? He goes, man, you're going to have to eat a lot. Every hour on the bike, you blow through a certain amount of carbs. You have to get that back in your system so you keep fuel in your system. He said you can take some of these gels. You can eat them, just kind of, I don't know if you're any athletes in here, but you can digest them really easily and keep moving without having to pull over and eat a sandwich. He goes, you don't want to only do gels because your stomach will be in disarray, so have some bananas for potassium, fig bars, all these kinds of different things. And so 7 months after I was basically laid off by the pandemic and had nothing else to do, I started running, started riding a bike. Before you knew it, had a 100-mile bike ride. So completely out of the blue, never expected to do that. My goal was to finish it in under 6.5 hours and average 15 miles an hour. That way I could finish before dark if I had to take too many breaks. But I finished it off and completed. I didn't have a lot of elevation. I didn't want to put myself through too many hills because I just wanted to finish it. But I was able to do it. And I tell you that not to tell you what I did, but to tell everybody here, there's things you can do you're not even thinking about right now. I did not start the pandemic thinking that I could ride a bike 100 miles. I just wanted to get in shape. And so I did and put that little thing in motion, and before you knew it, just 7 months later, I was able to ride 100 miles, which I thought was pretty cool. And I finished that, and I used my brain, and my brain consumed 20% of those calories from all that food I showed you minutes ago, and felt pretty good the next day. So what did I learn on this first part of the journey about thinking bigger than myself? Small goals will lead to bigger goals. If you just get the ball rolling, you're going to put yourself in gear and find yourself in places you've never been before, which might trigger other ideas to take you someplace that you've never been before. I just had a simple goal of getting in shape before I knew it, 100 miles on a bike. You can do more than you think, for sure. Never thought I could pull that off. Went from 6 minutes to 6 hours. Incremental improvement is important. And a lot of times, whether it's business or Home at Life, or with other goals, we don't acknowledge that we're making progress. Sometimes it feels like it takes forever. But if you don't acknowledge the progress you're making, it will kind of throw you off your momentum and you won't finish things. So notice the small changes and acknowledge your progress along the way. And then disruption, even though it can be crazy and unsettling, it can be a great blessing. You get back into doing some things that you want to do and evaluate things that you were doing before. Maybe ask yourself, do I want to keep doing these things? I definitely shook some habits off during that first break. So the first part here is just about thinking bigger. I want you to know it's easily done. It takes some time, but all you have to do is put that first step out in front and follow it. So that's the first part. Better is my favorite part of this whole presentation. I finished doing that 100 miles, and I went back to my car, and I looked at my watch, and I looked at the mirror in the car. I'm like, I did that, and there's nobody there. My wife could care less. You know, it was just like I did something for myself, and I was happy I did it for myself. I pushed myself, but it was a little hollow. It wasn't fulfilling like I thought it would be. It was just something that I did. And really, honestly, I could have just sat there that day for 10 hours and told everybody I did it. But I went out and did it, so I felt good about that. But nobody really benefited from it. Individual goals are good, but if you don't share them and make them public to other people, you kind of have a get-out-of-jail-free card if you don't finish it, right? Nobody else knows but you. But if you include somebody else on your goal or your challenge, you're going to be held accountable because they want you to finish it. So I think good goals are individual goals, sure, but great goals challenge your present idea of what's possible and lead you to new places that you never expected to go, and you share them publicly. That way you're held accountable, and others can cheer you on the journey and maybe get involved in it and get in their own journey. But you have to clearly benefit other people with your goal. That's the better part of the program today. The best way I've found to do that is pick something that's logical to your brain, that you think you can do and accomplish, but also have it fulfill your heart. Like, who do you want to benefit? Is there somebody in your life or organization that you think could benefit from you just putting something in motion and raising some money or some awareness from? And then obviously doing the thing. When you get those three things working in concert together, your head, your heart, and your hands, things kind of move in your direction for you. But if you only have two of those three things, things tend not to work out. I found that to be true over time. The people we talked about earlier, some of these athletes, Jasmine Paris, she ran and she won that race, the Mountain Spice race. But not only did she win and beat the record by 12 hours, she was raising awareness for being a new mom who was breastfeeding. She had a 1-year-old that she had to stop and express milk for at every aid station. So not only was she whooping everybody, she was feeding the baby while she was doing it and reducing the stigma around it. So not only doing it for herself, but for other people. Diane Nyad, 64 years old, pulled that off, and she was raising awareness about ageism and the way that people look at older people, and also inspiring people in their senior years to do something bigger than they thought they could do. And speaking of your senior years, Tom Moore, the 100-year-old World War I vet, made it to 100 years old, and also raised $3 million for the World Health Organization and the National Health Service out in the United Kingdom by doing those walks. People were inspired by what he was doing. They started donating online. Before you know it, $3 million. So I'm sure each of these athletes at points had thoughts in the back of their mind, I don't think I can finish this, but then they started thinking, but I'm not doing it just for myself. I'm going to do it for somebody else and finish this. So they all did. If we think about the creative people, Lady Gaga put that together. 72 artists raised $128 million that year. Our artist there raised $65,000 for various charities. And this gal who found all them 4-leaf clovers took them to the racetrack and won $1.2 million. I made that last part up. She did not go to the racetrack, not that I know. But maybe she did. I have no idea. Maybe she just fed it to a goat and that goat felt great for a day. But when we attach ourselves to something bigger than ourselves, we get the momentum rolling and we start feeling pretty good about it. So there's companies that do this, organizations out there that I like. You know, Souls for Souls, they collect used shoes, and now they're getting a lot of new shoes too because they're known for distributing these to people who need them across the globe. How many millions of shoes do you think they've distributed over the past, looks like 15, 20 years there? 11 million shoes, 11 million pairs of shoes out there, so they get involved. Some of the companies we use every day, it's good to know that they're also giving back a little bit. Amazon is big with St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Disney, of course, with Make-A-Wish. They're celebrating 40 years of doing it this year. Salvation Army and Walmart have been together for a while. So a company as big as that can still give back. And I know there's tax benefits and all those things that they get from doing it. But they also don't have to do it. And it's always impressive to me that they step out and do it. I want to celebrate Chick-fil-A here for a second. They're You know, a lot of people like them. Some people don't like them. I like all the chicken, just to be clear. I go to Popeyes or Bojangles or whatever the next one is on the road. But they do stuff sometimes. You're like, how did they do that? Why did they do it? What can I learn from it? A few years back in San Antonio, Texas, a lady was on the way to the hospital to give birth to her first baby. She was about 20 miles out, and she couldn't make it. She told her husband, we're not going to get to that delivery room on time. But up here on this exit, there's a Chick-fil-A. It'll be clean, they're going to be nice, and I bet they'll help us out. First off, people are thinking about having babies at your fast food joint because it's clean. Congratulations. I mean, there ain't no babies down at Arby's right now. I'll tell you that. The Katie cakes are back and no babies. So the husband pulls in there. He checks with the manager. He goes, I guess so, and had the baby right there at the Chick-fil-A. And it was clean. They were nice. They helped out. And that would have been enough, right? Don't y'all think that's playing with liability issues and everything of having a baby? But here's where the guy that ran that particular restaurant stepped up. He said, you know what? This was a blessing for us. Y'all can eat here for free until that child turns 14 years old. And then if you would like, we'll give that kid a job. Have you ever heard of something like that? I told my wife, daggone, we missed out on that deal. If I'd known those were the rules, we'd have had our baby at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Keep on bringing me those $18 mashed potatoes. They must be miraculous. So they had the baby there. And what I love about that is, I didn't mention chicken the whole time, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the way they thought about helping somebody else and serving beyond themselves. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get across in this better section. Recently, as last week, I heard about this. A baby was born at a Walmart in Joplin, Missouri, and according to the manager there, he was the first thing made in the USA at that Walmart. Setting records. Probably true. And as young as babies are, you're never too young to start a big goal. Another inspiring person I found online was this little girl, 10 years old. She raised over $1.2 million for 60 different charities. And all she did was put campaigns out online where people could easily donate and a picture of why they should do it. It started off with her love of kittens. She wanted to get something going for the SPCA, and then that one raised so much money, she thought, well, I also like this other cause. And then other people started calling her saying, can you help us? And this little 10-year-old raised $1.2 million. So we can all benefit somebody else. Whose life can you make better? You know, it could be something as simple as somebody you know, one of your friends or somebody you work with that's got medical debt that came out of nowhere they weren't prepared for, and they need help getting that taken care of. You might be able to make that part of your challenge. It might be a community project. Maybe there's an area in your town that needs a park, and people are talking about it, but nobody's doing it. Maybe you can be the voice that gets that ball rolling and gets the fundraiser started. Maybe you're part of a food bank, and you want to see more people taken care of that way, and with winter coming here in a few months, make sure they take care of in the winter months and make sure everything's stocked up. Might be that you have a heart for the homeless. I certainly do. Boy, everywhere you go, it's disheartening to see how many people are living on the streets. And you know, you can give them stuff there at the four-way stop, or you can donate to a homeless shelter who not only takes them in and helps them clean up a little bit, but gives them the tools they need to get back involved in society. And we always want to give a hand up as well. So homeless shelter might be a cause for you. Again, maybe you're more into animals than people. Animal shelters are out there for you. Could be something you're involved with at church, a mission group, something that goes beyond the boundaries of the United States. Could just be your voice isn't being heard out there, and there's others like you, and their voice isn't being heard, and you want to get that across. Maybe it's your community or to your local government or whatever it might be. Those are all worthy causes, and it can benefit somebody besides just you. So I want you to think, whose life can you make better? So on the next box, top right, I want you to write down a charity that you particularly like, or maybe an individual you think could use some help, or even maybe somebody that's helped you in the past when you needed it the most and expected the least, and you want to pay them back in some way by raising some awareness of what they're into, maybe some funds for that. So I'll give you another minute here to look at your sheet. Just kind of think, who could I possibly help out if I had the time to do it? Everybody got an idea now? Maybe 2 or so? Okay. We can always come back to that later if you need a little bit more time. When you're thinking about giving to a charity, I want to let you know there's several online places you can go to kind of vet the charity to make sure the money you're putting in is actually going to the people you want them to help out. There's 3 great websites I found: Charity Watch, and Charity Navigator, and the Better Business Bureau also has an accreditation system that they have to meet 20 different levels of criteria to be considered to be listed on their website. Some of the better ones and more efficient ones, the International Children's Fund uses 99.7% of the money given to them to fund the people that you're trying to fund. That's pretty big. Direct Relief is another one, 99.4%. On the flip side of things, there's some groups that raise a lot of money but don't distribute very well. You want to make sure that the money you're giving to, maybe you're trying to help a homeless shelter in Alaska, you don't want the board of directors visiting Hawaii to discuss it, right? You're spending all your money. You want to make sure that your money's going where it's supposed to go. There's lists of worst charities, and some have great names, but the efficiency is not there. All the money that they're paying out is going to the salespeople and the solicitors that are raising the money, and very little, sometimes less than 1%, is actually going to the cause that you're trying to donate money to. So your heart should get you involved in this, but your logical part of your brain should do a little research. And if you can't find a major charity that's meeting up to your expectations, it might just be best to go direct and give the money or the cause or the fundraising to somebody specific instead of a group. But there are some great ones. I just want to make you aware there's definitely some that are not doing a lot of great work, even with great names and great causes. They're just not giving the money where you think it's going. So again, you've got that blank, who will you better? You'll discover some things when you start linking better people and better causes to your goal and your achievements. Again, look local if you can. Obviously the money doesn't have to travel as far, and maybe you can get involved in dispersed really quickly. There's always needs nearby. If you get your head, heart, and your hands involved, the goal and the challenge and the money will be raised better than if you don't have all 3 of those. It just makes connecting a lot more easy. There's really no excuse not to do something for somebody else, whether you're 10 years old or 100-year-old. People out there are doing amazing things, and sometimes very simple things to raise awareness and funds. And again, don't waste the donation. Make sure it's going where you need to go. Do the research to make sure it gets there. All right? So moving on to the next section here is all about faster. Now, how fast you accomplish your challenge or your goal, whatever it might be, isn't as important as the fact is you know there's going to be things that will slow you down. And I just want to kind of walk through what I kind of find to be the case in every challenge that I've attempted and how I got around it a little quicker, so when you put this into motion, you'll have a little less resistance as you go through it. There's a phrase: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I think that's true, but I also think that's not the whole story. I think a lot of times you need others to go fast as well as far. You know, it's great if you have an individual goal because you can wake up, hit the ground running, not wait on anybody else to get it done. But when you have other people, they can step in when maybe you're not feeling like you can get it done. And they can keep the goal moving forward even without you being there. It's kind of like owning a business. If you own the business and it can't run without you, you don't own it, it owns you, right? You want to be able to run, want this goal to be achieved, whether you end up finishing it off or somebody else. There's going to be a grind. When I started riding the bike, I could not get up hills. There was one particular hill here in Nashville called Heartland Hill. I think it's 180 feet, and I got about 20 feet up and I had to walk up every time. And then I got a little further the next couple of times I tried it. It probably took me 25, 30 times before I finally got to the top of that hill. I mean, I could not believe it. And you know what? After that final time I got up, I never had to stop and walk again. And it was just my brain realizing I can do it. I probably couldn't have done it the first 10 or 15 because I wasn't in shape enough. But as I got in shape enough, I realized it's just up here. Do I want to grind it out or not? But let me tell you, when you get to the top of the hill and you've gone through that work, the speed you pick up on your way down is totally worth it. There's times where I get on some of these hills out in the county, you can do 55, 60 miles an hour on your bike. And if you've never gone as fast as a car on a bike, let me tell you, it's scary, really. There's an acorn can take you out, and that'd be it. I mean, it's getting to be the time of year where walnuts and leaves get a little stuck out. I'm not going to go there. But when it's clear and dry, there is nothing. And hills lead to thrills, and it's fun, again, to go by myself. But when I'm going down with a group of guys who just went that same grind, no matter who gets there first, we wait on the others to come up there, and we all hit that downhill together. And it's just screaming and hollering like a bunch of old dudes. So a lot of fun. But when we're on the flats, too, I've learned that it is good to go with others. I don't know how much you know about biking or running, but there's a drafting effect. Even NASCAR has this. So if you're behind somebody, you're using less energy, right? And so when we get this bike lane, or these pelotons, as they're called, that's how the big exercise equipment guy, his name. The Peloton reduces the friction. So the first person up there in the front is absorbing all the wind from whatever angle it is. The next person is using as much as 40% less energy to keep the same pace. In fact, when you're the second, third, and on back, sometimes you're just coasting for a while, and you kind of feel bad. But the guy in the back comes up to the front, takes the lead for a couple miles, or whatever it might be, and we all rotate. So we each take the brunt of the load for a while, but we also enjoy the efforts of everybody else. And as a group, we always finish faster than if we'd done it by ourselves, for sure, because we have less resistance. But we're also kind of motivated when we're in front to give it everything we got, because we know everybody else has done that for us. So that lesson comes in a lot of different ways. When we did this comedy show here in Nashville, we needed a lot of people. Let me tell you what happened. 2 days into it, one of the audience members got up, so we only had 19 in the audience. Before they get a replacement in there, the next comic took the stage. Comics had to have at least a 6-hour buffer before they got back up on stage, and he went up 15 minutes too early. So in 1 minute, we had 2 things go against us, and we had to stop. So we really had a 10-day comedy show, but we had to restart after 2 days. And let me tell you, if that was just me, I would have said, let's try it again next year. But we had over 100 comics involved in that, and they're like, you know what, we're here, let's just start over and do it. So people heard about it, came in on those final 2 days we had to add and made sure we could finish it off. But we finished it together, and we finished it faster than if we had to wait another year to get it started again. We all know about goals. We've all heard the term SMART goals. I'm here to tell you the SMART goal concept is kind of dead because it's so individual and nobody else is involved with it. And, it works. We hear about having a goal that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based, and those are important. But what else? To me, what makes a smarter goal is doing all that and empowering other people while you accomplish it and reaching further than you thought you could and having impact beyond the finish line. When you do that, I think you've got a smarter goal and one that will keep you more involved. And just because it's a smarter goal, it doesn't make you smart. Just like a smart car doesn't make you a smarter driver, or drinking smart water makes you a smarter thinker, or playing Candy Crush makes you smarter. But it is important to have the best goal possible, and smarter is the way to go. So here's an example of a smarter goal. I will hike and complete the entire Appalachian Trail, 2,200 miles, in one continuous trip, regardless of how long it takes to raise awareness for the visually impaired. So that's got all those things the SMART goal has in it, but it also benefits somebody else, and the impact reaches further than just the individual that tried it. Now, as a smarter goal, it's important to word things correctly. Not a smarter goal would be if they had worded it, I want to be the first blind hiker to attempt to hike the Appalachian Trail. From then on, that person can take 10 steps and accomplish that goal, right? Because they attempted it. But they didn't finish it and complete it regardless of how long it took. So putting a completion date and that you'll actually do it in the goal makes it a smarter goal. And this guy did it. Trevor Thomas, blind hiker, completed the entire 2,200 Appalachian Trail while raising awareness about visual impairment. So not only did he commit to it, he totally finished it, but it was not easy. There's always obstacles out there, detours that take you off track, but he committed to finishing, not just for himself, but for other people. Again, if we look at some of the examples we had earlier, Diane Nyad, the 64-year-old who accomplished that swim from Cuba to Key West. She had jellyfish. What you see there, she had to create a mask, invent a mask that kept her face from being stung by jellyfish because she was being stung through her swims. All the other previous swims, she was getting stung. And the doctors told her one more sting, especially to the head and neck area, could paralyze her. So not only did she say, well, I'll find a way around it, she has a trademark on that. She had no shark cage when she was swimming. She was completely vulnerable out there. She had people on the boat following her. She could never touch the boat getting onto it. She had to float or swim the entire time. And the currents sometimes took her out of her direction. She swam a couple of extra miles during that trip than she wanted to because the currents were taking her. So she was fighting against it by herself. It would have been a great case to have others to go with you to break it, but she was on her own that one. Lady Gaga, does she have obstacles? I don't know. You ever been on a Zoom call? I'm pretty sure she did, right? With 72 artists logging in and their instruments and everything. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's probably how I listen to it anyway. But there's always going to be obstacles. This guy that did the Appalachian Trail who was blind, he had a foot fracture throughout it. He had one head gash while he was hiking. He didn't want to take time to go to the hospital, so he got super glue and super glued his head back together. All right, 4 broken ribs, 8 hospital visits, 3,000 times he fell. In one day, he fell 78 times. But he got back up, and he finished. So really, not a lot of excuses that we can take when somebody goes that hard at a goal and finishes something off. Pretty impressive. Obstacles, equal opportunities every single time. They give you a chance to think creatively, become more efficient at asking other people for help, And you usually meet some pretty interesting people when you have some obstacles that pop out of nowhere, right? Whether they're creepy or helpful or whatever they may be, they weren't part of your original plan, and they're people that are along with you on the journey now, so it's pretty fun. You have obstacles every day. I drop the soap 5 times every time I take a shower now. As soon as I hit 50, I just couldn't hold on to soap, so I got around that. I just get 6 bars of soap and take it with me. I scoop them all up at the end, you know. But there's ways to get around the little obstacles. You're going to have obstacles throughout your journey. I just want to give you the typical flow and the way I see things happening so you know how to go about doing your business on this. So the first part is what I call preparation H. It's all happiness. That's what the H stands for. You're excited about it. You can't wait to try it. You haven't done anything yet. It's all up here. It might be a little bit here, but you haven't put your hands to use yet. And you're telling other people, and they're fired up for you. Then all of a sudden you launch it, and boy, it's a big party or whatever it is, and you get the word out, and there's momentum, and you're going faster by far than you thought you could, and you're just excited to get that ball rolling. And then a little while into it, nobody else is there cheering you on, and you're on your own for a while, and you start having what I call triers remorse. Like, oh man, I thought this was a good idea, but I don't think I can pull it off. You start to have those negative thoughts in your head. Before you know it, a huge unexpected obstacle that you had no idea was going to happen, but you find your way around it. And then, to get around it, you might have to have somebody help you out. Somebody's been there before. I call it enter the mentor. But somebody that can get you over the hump mentally, maybe give you some physical tips as well to accomplish your goal, get you around that big obstacle. And what I found with the guys that have helped me out, they always give me small things to focus on. But those small things add up. So when I was doing bike rides, it was, hey, ride 5 more miles each week. Ride 10 more miles each, whatever it might be. Just something I could do. Ride another 1,000 feet in elevation. Something I could focus on. Then you get to the tipping point where, man, I think I can finish this thing out. And you get excited, and boom, another obstacle comes right before to make sure you're really bought into this idea. You get around that, and you hit the finish line, and you can celebrate. And I've learned in my past that celebrating by myself, a little bit empty. Celebrating with others, way more important. So when I think of going further, I think of who else can I help? And so I told you about the 100-mile bike ride. I felt good about it. I kept riding my bike for a while, and I'll skip here just a little bit ahead so we can get to the meat of the matter here. And yeah, so here we go. So the first year, full year that I rode a bike after 2020 was 2021. I ended up riding 5,644 miles. And I'm like, man, that's a lot. And I realized it is pretty far, but I started thinking, how far is around the world? Around the world is almost 5 times that, right? 5,644 is basically the distance between Key West and Nome, Alaska. So I basically rode all the way across North America. They're just trying to get from one spot to the other. So I put in my head this goal. Can I raise $1 million and ride 25,000 miles, or equal to the distance around the globe at the equator, while I do it? So I'm getting the benefits of the health, but while I'm doing it, I'm performing at comedy shows for nonprofits and different charities and raising money and partnering with them and learning from them, and all that they do is also a benefit for me. But can I put this together and finish it off? So I started riding my bike, averaging about 5,000 miles a year. Had some obstacles here and there. I can go into it at a different time maybe, or you can follow my story online on my website. I'll tell you about it in a second. But pretty big obstacles that set me back sometimes 6 to 12 weeks at a time where I couldn't even ride the bike and had to take time off the road. Before you know it, though, I saw the numbers going. Even though the first year that I attempted this, none of the fundraisers partnered with me because their events were planned a year ahead of time, I still finished the miles, got the goal going. And as of today, I'm at 21,735 miles of riding, but $1.1 million of fundraising. So it's something we can all do. But I tell you that not to tell you what I've done, but to tell you what's sitting there with you right now. Everybody in here can think of something you can do that will help somebody else get further along, and you enjoy some benefits while it happens for sure, but the focus isn't on you, and the focus on somebody else will motivate you to finish it. So I'm going to wrap up with that. I do want to tell you, on your sheets there at the bottom, there's some contact information. I would love if I hear from somebody in this room or multiple people about something you're just thinking about doing. Whether you end up doing it or not, we can follow up later. But I'd love for you to email me, drop me a line, and let me know what you're thinking about today that you can put into action. Maybe there's somebody in my network of connections that can help you get that goal accomplished, and I'd be happy to connect you with them. But I want you to take that and try to finish it off. The little box in the bottom right where it says further, I just want you to think about the impact you'll have after you accomplish this goal. Who will be helped in the long term, and where will they be that they couldn't have been without your help and without your cause? So I'm going to leave you with that today. I know you've had a full day of listening in today on some technical stuff. Hopefully there was something here in this session that motivated you a little bit. What I do need, you see these guys with the cameras hanging out here. Every time I've got to do a presentation for Suzanne, they've been grateful enough to let me record. And so I can share this with other people, because I really think we can help a lot of people. I mean, if we multiply this out every time I speak across the, 100 times a year, we're going to get some things done for some organizations. So what I would love for if a few of you would help us on the way out here in a few minutes after we wrap up, just to kind of tell the camera guys what you've got up here. Okay, so after the room is cleared, I'd love for at least 3 or 4 of you to come up here and talk to Ray and talk to the camera and say, he made me think about this, or because of this session, I'm thinking about maybe doing this, or just what passed through your mind today. It'll help me out. It'll help other groups that are thinking about maybe hiring me for their event, so they can kind of get feedback from you guys who watch the presentation. And I'd be happy to speak to anybody on the way out. If you have any tips for me on the presentation or ideas that could maybe help it out. So again, thank you very much. I'll turn things back over to you guys and have a great time.